Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're making Ibores. So Ibores is a Spanish goat's cheese that's been rubbed with smoked paprika. And I've got the finished product here, so at the end of the video there will be a taste test, so that's very exciting. It was made with 12 litres or 3 gallons of goat's milk, which I've managed to find a good source of here in Victoria, Australia. And yeah, I think that this cheese is going to turn out pretty well. Not as red as I wanted it to be, but nonetheless, it does smell amazing. And we'll get to that when we get into the taste test. But for now, let me show you how I made Ibores cheese. And yeah, here's the process. So first of all, we sanitize all of our equipment. You can see I've got my cheesecloth in there, the stainless steel utensils, and they are all being boiled for about 5 minutes. And we wipe all the other surfaces with either a weak bleach solution or some plain white vinegar. Just got the camera set up there so you can all see what's going on. I'm also using a precision cooker in the sink to heat the milk. As you can see there, I've got it all set up, ready to go. There's my clean tea towel, ready to put all the utensils on, and all of that goat's milk, there it is. So the ingredients for Ibores is 12 litres or 3 gallons of goat's milk, pasteurised, unhomogenised, 1/16 of a teaspoon of MA 4000 series Meso/Thermo culture blend, 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1.25 millilitres of single strength liquid rennet. I'm using IMCU 200, and that's diluted in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. 1/4 cup or 1.25 mils of calcium chloride, also diluted in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. 18% brine solution, cheese salt for rubbing, and the rub contains 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, olive oil, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, slowly heat your milk to 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just filling up the water bath there, and the precision cooker will do the rest. There's the starting temperature, and it should take about 30 minutes to heat the milk up to the target temperature. And there we go, we're fairly close. So this is an ideal time to add in your calcium chloride, which I'll do in a second. Go, just slowly add that to the milk whilst you're stirring. This adds back a bit of soluble calcium to assist with the rennet set. Now we're going to add the starter culture, just sprinkle that over the top. I didn't actually quite have enough, I just had enough by pouring in the dregs out of my culture jar there. Sprinkle that over the surface of the milk. There we go. Pop the lid on, and we're going to wait 5 minutes for the culture to rehydrate. So now we're going to stir the culture into the milk. Stir that in a top to bottom motion. There we go, perfect. And then cover that and let the milk ripen for 1 hour. This is where it converts the lactose into lactic acid. So after the hour, give it a bit of a stir. Now the great thing about goat's milk is that the cream does not naturally float to the top. So stir in the rennet. Make sure that the milk is moving when you pour that in. Just give it a stir, an up and down motion for about 30 seconds. No more than 1 minute. There we go, there's the rennet stirred in. Put the lid back on, and we're going to let the milk set for 1 hour. So after the hour, just do a clean break. I did that off camera. We're going to cut the curds into 5 centimetre or 2-inch columns, doing like a checkerboard effect there on the milk. This will assist with some draining. Remember that goat's milk curds are usually quite delicate, So this is a good way to stop them from fracturing. Now we're going to let the curds rest and heal for 10 minutes. So 10 minutes later, you can see a bit of whey's been expelled there. That's fantastic. Now I'm going to go in with the curd harp and do the horizontal cuts at 1.25 or ½ inch, and then I'll make them into fairly chunky cubes. Still not cut as small as I want them to be just yet. I'm going to go in with the whisk now and cut them into smaller pieces, about 1/4 inch or 0.75 centimetres. And then gently stir that, just making sure there's no big pieces that are remaining behind. You want it all fairly even sized curds. And the good thing is, by using that little quick procedure there are no fractured curds. They're all fairly solid and it's of a good consistency. So let that rest again for 10 minutes to heal again. So now over the next 30 minutes, we're going to stir gently every 3 minutes just to break up the curds so they don't mat together. You can see that there's a fair bit of whey expelled. So make sure that the milk stays at 30 degrees Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit during this stirring period. Once that's done, pop the lid on and remove the heat source. Just removing my precision cooker there and taking the water out of the water bath. We'll let the curds settle in the whey for 10 minutes. This just helps them acidify a little bit further. So now we're going to remove half of the whey from the pot so that the liquid level is just to the level of the curds. I'm just using a sieve and a ladle and just tipping that through the butter muslin just to make sure I'm not wasting any of the curds if any of them are floating around in there. So just a quick stir before I start ladling. Maybe get rid of the whey first. So use a ladle to transfer the curds to a loose weave cloth lined cheese basket. I'm using my 165mm or 6.5 inch diameter basket, which takes between 8 and 12 litres of milk. Well, the curds form from that. So just gently putting it into the basket. Now this took about 30 minutes because it wouldn't all fit initially. I just waited a little bit and then topped it up as we went along. And it shrinks quite readily. So pop a little bit more on, wait 10 minutes or so, and then pop it in. There we go, all of it's in. So it shrinks even more there, you can see. So fold the cloth over the curds just to give it a bit of protection. I'm just taking it out of the basket. There we go. Moving that from the colander. So fold the cloth over and then put the follower on top. And give it a bit of a squeeze. Now you may have to adjust your press. I did just to get it under there because it was so full. There we go. So we're going to press for 1 hour at 11 kilograms approximately, or 25 pounds. And this will help it consolidate the rind. Remembering this is a semi-hard cheese. So unwrap and gently flip it. And I mean be gentle, because it is only just formed the rind and it is very delicate. So turn it over. Pop it back into the mould again, fold the cloth over the top, put the follower on top and press it again. So this time we're going the full pressure of my spring, so 23 kilos or 50 pounds for 90 minutes, that's an hour and a half. So after an hour and a half, unwrap, gently flip it and then rewrap it again. It's getting there, it's fairly soft cheese still. Remember, Remember, there's a lot of moisture. We didn't stir very much during the cooking phase of the cheese, so it does retain a lot of moisture. So now we're going to press at 23 kilos or 50 pounds for 4 hours. Now you may need to adjust the spring because it does loosen as it compresses. So just check that every so often. So after the 4 hours, I'm going to unwrap, gently flip it and rewrap. So it was still fairly, I don't know, not moist. What's the word I'm looking for? It was a little bit came off, as you can see there on the cloth. It was still fairly soft, and it wasn't in the right form. I think that it would have flattened if I had stopped right now. So I decided to press it for a little bit longer, another 4 hours, at the 50 pounds or 23 kilograms. So I rewrapped it again. And that little tear that happened, that went away after this pressing. So pop the follower on top and press it again at 23 kilos or 50 pounds for another 4 hours. So that's 8 hours in total at this pressure, but there's a flipping in between. So for me, that was the next day. I took it out of the basket and put it into the brine solution. There we go. Oh, very full. Okay, so because there's an exposed side, just sprinkle a bit of salt over the top of the exposed surface. Now you can leave it like this, but I just put a little lid on it. Just protects it from any beasties getting into it. Brine it for 3 hours. So halfway through the brining time, we're just going to flip it over and pop it back in the brine, and then we're going to salt the now exposed side again. Sprinkle salt over the top. This helps with the salt absorption. It's only a 3-hour brining. Very slight. Remembering this is a very soft cheese though, so it's going to absorb lots of salt. Now we're going to remove the cheese from the brine. Just be careful when you do this because it may be fairly soft and it may even crack, and I'll show you a little bit of that later. There we go. Now we're going to dry salt all surfaces. Just sprinkle salt over the top. There's no amount, just until there's a coating. Give it a little bit of a rub. Do the same on the other side. There we go. And then rub around the edges. Right, there you go. You can see there's the cheese that's been dry salted after it's come out of the brine. So there's 2 types of salting used for this cheese. And as I spin it around, you can see I made a little bit of a crack in the rind where I picked it up out of the brine. So make sure you've got a big enough brine bucket so this doesn't happen. I really had to slip my fingers in the side because it was taking up a lot of space in that bucket. But it worked out fine. That crack didn't affect the cheese at all. So allow it to dry at room temperature for 1 to 2 days. It's a fairly acidic cheese and it won't late blow. So after the 1 to 2 days, if you think it's air dried enough, the air dried weight for this cheese is 1.63 kilograms or 3 pounds 10 ounces, which is on the bigger side, which is good. So now we're going to do the rub part of the Ibores. So the rub is 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of salt, and eventually I used 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Doesn't have to be a fancy olive oil, just olive oil will be fine. So that was a fresh jar when I opened it, so I didn't need to sanitize it. Nothing had got into it, which is good. And I'm going to add the salt now. This is just a fine cheese salt. And put that in the bowl, and then add a little bit of olive oil to make it into a paste. I tried one first, 1 tablespoon, and found that was a little bit too gluggy, which you'll see in a second. There we go. No, didn't make a paste, it was more of a globby. So there we go. So there's 2 tablespoons, and that's perfect. That's the consistency you want. Nice. Okay, so now we get messy and bring out our inner child, and we rub it all over the cheese. So as you can see there, rub it over the entire surface. It's a bit messy, but it is what it is. This gives the cheese a little bit more flavour. Also protects it, would you believe, very well from mould, which we'll see as we progress through. Here we go, and there's the last of it. So I used most of the rub, the vast majority of it anyway, to get the colour I wanted and a little bit of flavour, and like I said, it protects the cheese. So then pop that onto a mat in a ripening box. Now I've got a cloth in the bottom of the ripening box there. We're going to age that at 13 degrees Celsius or 55 Fahrenheit for 4 to 6 weeks and turning it twice a week. The cloth adds a little bit more moisture or humidity into the ripening box. About 80 to 90% humidity would be fine. So if there is any mould during this period as you're turning it twice weekly that is on the surface of the cheese, we can reapply the rub, or at least the smoky paprika, a little bit of oil on the bottom there. So I just added a bit of dry smoky paprika, a bit of olive oil on top. So I didn't make it up in a bowl or anything, and just rubbed it as I saw necessary to make sure that it has still had an even coating of the rub all over the cheese, and it was a little bit drier. There we go, so pop that back in the cheese fridge and just keep monitoring it for that 4 to 6 weeks of ripening. So after maturation, so this is at 6 weeks, we're going to clean off the cheese and get rid of that excess rub. So pull it out of the ripening box, pop it on a board, and just using a butter knife there, just a flat knife, not cutting into the cheese or anything. I'm actually not using the blade, I'm using the other side of the knife, and just rubbing off that rub-a-dub. There we go. So there'll be a little bit left, so I'm using some clean paper towel just to pat that down. There's hardly any moisture on the rind, but we'll fix that up in a second with an air dry. So we're going to air dry that for an hour before we serve it up. Now, not as red as I'd like it to be, but I'll let Gav talk about that now. So there you go, fairly simple. This one is only 6 weeks old, so it's a little bit like, I'm trying to think of another cheese that it's very similar to. Caerphilly would be another one. So when I made the smoky paprika Caerphilly, very similar sort of process, the rubbing and all that sort of stuff. However, the Caerphilly, the cow's milk seemed to absorb more of the smoky paprika and giving it a better colour. This one, not so much. The colour's still very off-white, very, very bright white, and I dare say the inside of the cheese is going to be very white as well. As far as the smell goes, it smells cheesy. There's not much more you can say about that. So it's got a good aroma, nice milky aroma. But let's cut into it and have a look, shall we? Just using a sharp knife. Oh, it goes in fairly easily. There we go. Ah, lovely. Lovely, lovely looking cheese. All right, so you can see some mechanical holes there. No big deal whatsoever. It's not moist. Well, it is moist. It's a big cheese though, as far as compared to the normal ones I make. Let me just cut some more. How are we going to do this? There we go. Very nice indeed. Yeah, this is cutting very well. So it's a very fresh sort of cheese. Like I said, only aged for 6 weeks, so you wouldn't expect it to to have a heck of a lot of flavour. But having said that, you know, we'll see in a second. So, oh, that looks so white and delicious. So let's cut a bit there. Oh, very nice. And try Ibores. Oh, smells a little bit goaty. You know, that smell you get with normal goat's milk. That's got a nice flavour. A little bit crumbly. It's not flexible. It crumbles a bit like feta. In fact, it tastes just a little bit like feta. It's got a nice acidity to it, good saltiness. So that's come through really well. That's really good. I didn't really know what to expect, but it's a semi-hard cheese. Still a fair bit of moisture in there, so that's really nice. You can taste a little bit of the paprika, not much. It's just, I think it's purely cosmetic. Really, not much flavour has gone into the cheese at all, but that is really nice. Oh, so Moorish. Beautiful, very subtle. You know when you get some fresh goat cheeses, they're really sharp and they've got that real goatiness about them. This one hasn't. This is a little bit on the milder side, a little bit acidic, but it hasn't got that overbearing goat flavour that you normally get. So that's really, really good. Now I was going to try this cheese at 4 weeks, but I thought, no, let me just age it a couple more weeks more. And I'm glad I did, because the flavour is just so nice. Because this is so moist, I don't think it's going to age very well further past that time. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't vacuum pack it and then age it longer to see what the flavour turns out. It probably would start to turn quite sharp as it ages out, I think. You know what this reminds me of? I had a goat howder a long time ago and it was aged out to a year. This has got those subtle flavours in it. So yeah, really nice, but the crumbliness is just great. This would go fantastic over salads and stuff like that. So any garden salad sort of stuff, crumble the cheese over, very much like feta, but it's a solid cheese. It's a good cheese. So try Ibores. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. And I'm sure you will be pleasantly surprised. Now don't forget that this channel is supported by you, the Curd Nerds. And there are many YouTube members and patrons that support the channel on a monthly basis. If you're interested, have a look at the links in the description below. So, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I'll see you next time.